I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Julie and I had been together for over 10 years. We married young, had 2 kids, a nice house, decent jobs, everything seemed normal on the surface. But looking back, I'll admit there were signs I ignored or brushed off. Small things, really. She started working late more often, claiming it was her boss asking her to cover shifts. She'd get defensive when I asked about her phone, always saying I was paranoid or jealous. She had this way of twisting everything, calling me insecure or controlling if I dared question her about anything. But nothing prepared me for what I found last week. We had a regular visit to her pediatrician for our daughter's checkup. The doctor's office is just a few blocks from our house, and we've gone there for years. Nothing unusual about that. Our kids like Dr. Simmons, and honestly, she's a good doctor. But I noticed something strange that day. I'd been suspicious for a while because Julie had been acting weird, distant, defensive, avoiding eye contact. And she'd been unusually touchy lately, like she was hiding something. It started with me noticing her phone a lot. More, she'd keep it close, hide it from me, and when I asked to see it, she'd get snippy. One night I caught her deleting messages, and I swear I saw her typing something late at night when she thought I was asleep. I brushed it off, told myself I was paranoid. Then last Wednesday, I decided to follow her after she said she was going to the grocery store. I didn't expect much. I figured it was just her usual routine. But what I saw blew my mind. She went to the clinic, not just for our daughter's appointment, but she stayed after hours. I saw her go inside, and a few minutes later, Dr. Simmons came out looking much more casual than when she was at the clinic. They talked for a while, standing pretty close. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I saw the way they looked at each other, like they were more than just doctor and patient. My stomach sank. I knew I was onto something. I waited a little while, then parked nearby and watched through the window. That's when I saw it, her slipping into Dr. Simmons' examination room after hours, and they didn't come out for a long time. The cameras in the hall caught them. They were in there for an hour, maybe more. I saw her kiss him, then go into the exam room again. I was stunned. My mind raced. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife Julie fucking our children's pediatrician. I felt sick, angry, betrayed. How could she do this? With someone who was supposed to be professional, who was supposed to care for our kids, not screw them behind my back. I never thought she'd cheat with someone so close, so trusted. It was like a punch to the gut. I kept watching as they disappeared into the room, my fists clenched, trying to process how someone I loved and trusted could do this to me, to our family. I didn't go home that night. I stayed in my car, trying to hold back the rage, trying to make sense of it all. My mind kept spinning over what I saw and what it meant. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew she'd lie her ass off, deny everything, say I'm imagining things. That's her style. Lying, twisting the truth, making herself seem like the victim. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. She's been sneaky, manipulative, and now I've got proof. I just don't know where to go from here. Things are about to get ugly. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, my stomach was in knots, and I couldn't stop thinking about what I saw. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew she'd deny everything. That's what she did best: lie, deny, manipulate. Still, I couldn't keep quiet. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Julie was in the kitchen making coffee, acting like nothing was wrong. She looked at me with that fake smile she always used when she was trying to hide something. I could see the nervous flicker in her eyes, and I knew I had to be careful. I sat across from her, took a deep breath, and just laid it out. "So, Julie," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I know you've been lying to me. I followed you yesterday. I saw you go into Dr. Simmons' office after hours. I saw you get into his room, and I saw you kiss him. Tell me what's going on." Her face twitched, her eyes darted around like she was trying to come up with a quick escape. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous. I was at the clinic for our daughter's follow-up, like I told you. Maybe you were stalking me or something. You're always accusing me of stuff that's not true." I clenched my fists. "Don't lie to me. I saw the whole thing. Cam, I saw you with him. This isn't some misunderstanding." "How long has this been going on?" She huffed, crossing her arms. "You're overreacting. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. Maybe he's a good doctor and we had a moment. Big deal. You're making it into something it's not." I felt my anger rise. A moment with our kid's doctor. You're kidding, right? Do you even hear yourself? You're supposed to be a mother, a wife. Instead, you're screwing around with someone who's supposed to be caring for our children. How could you do this? How could you lie to my face? How could you betray us like this? She rolled her eyes, scoffing. Oh, please, you think I love that guy? You think I want to be with him? It's just sex, that's all it is. You're so clueless, pretending to be the victim. I'm tired of your accusations and your jealousy. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere. That's when I realized her excuses were just that, excuses. She was deflecting, trying to make me doubt myself like she always did. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt sick, disappointed, and furious all at once. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I looked at her, and I saw the woman I'd loved for years, but also someone I barely recognized anymore. I told her if she wanted to keep lying, she could. I was done. I needed time to think, to process everything. I told her I was leaving for a while, that I couldn't be around her right now. She snapped at me, calling me insecure and paranoid, saying I was overreacting because I didn't want to face the truth. But I knew the truth now, clear as day. She had been cheating on me, and with our own kid's pediatrician of all people. The rest of the day was a blur. I packed a bag and left, not knowing what I was going to do, only knowing I couldn't trust her anymore. My mind kept circling back to what I saw, replaying those images. Her kissing him, sneaking back into that room, the way she lied so convincingly. I felt devastated, betrayed, like my entire world had blown up. And I couldn't help but wonder, how long had this been going on? Was it just that one time, or had she been doing this for months? The feelings were overwhelming. I was angry at her betrayal, but also hurt, deeply hurt. I'd built my life around her, around the idea of us, our family. And now, I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. I kept asking myself how I could have missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. The worst part was knowing that I loved her, or at least I thought I did. And now I was faced with the brutal reality that she had used me, manipulated me, and destroyed everything we'd built. I knew I needed to figure out what to do next, but honestly, I was just numb. All I could feel was this cold, hollow ache inside. At some point, I decided I wouldn't just walk away without making her face what she did. I was planning my next move, but I also knew I had to hold it together, at least outwardly. I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I had to be strategic, gather my strength, and think about what I wanted: revenge, justice, or just to get out of this mess without losing myself in the process. Either way, I knew that this was just the beginning of something much darker. After I left her that morning, I didn't go anywhere specific. Just drove around for a while, trying to clear my head. But honestly, I couldn't clear the image of her in that room with him, kissing him like she meant it. That thought kept stabbing me in the chest. I kept asking myself how she could be so cold, so ruthless about betraying me and our family. It was like I was living in some kind of nightmare I could wake up from. I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to do something. I started to plan. First, I needed solid proof, more than just what I saw through that security camera. I remembered I'd seen her phone at home, and I decided I'd try to get into it when she wasn't looking. She was the kind of person who made a big deal about privacy, but that day I was past caring. I figured if I could find messages or pictures, it would be game over for her. That evening, I waited until she was out with the kids at a friend's house. I snuck into her room, grabbed her phone, and started digging through her messages. It wasn't easy. She's pretty good at hiding stuff, deleting texts, clearing browsing history. But I found enough. There were texts between her and Dr. Simmons, explicit talk, plans to meet after hours again, and even some suggestive pictures. I felt sick reading them. It confirmed what I already knew, but seeing the proof in black and white made it real. This wasn't some mistake or a one-time thing. She was doing this regularly. I also found a bunch of messages where she was lying to my face about where she'd been, making excuses about work or errands. The worst part was how she justified it, calling it a sex thing, acting like I should understand. It was like she didn't see me as her husband, her partner, her family. She saw me as some guy she married, but her real life was with him. That realization hit me hard. I felt humiliated, angry, betrayed, and most of all, heartbroken. The woman I loved and trusted was just a facade. She'd been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face and using me all along. I never thought I'd be in this position. I always believed in honesty, loyalty, those old-fashioned values. But here I was, discovering the depths of her betrayal. I kept thinking about the kids. What kind of example was she setting? What kind of woman was she that she could do this and then lie about it? It made me question everything. My judgment, our marriage, her character. I honestly felt like I was losing my mind, but I knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. I had to confront her, face her head on, and get some answers. That night I decided I'd confront her the next day, but I also needed to prepare myself emotionally. I knew she'd deny everything, call me crazy or jealous, just like she always did when she was caught in a lie. I wanted to be ready for her bullshit, but more than that, I wanted to be ready to stand my ground. Whatever she threw at me, I'd hold on to the truth. I'd take pictures of the proof I found, maybe even record her if she lied again. I wanted to gather everything I could to make her face the consequences of her actions. I also realized I needed support. I didn't want to do this alone, so I reached out to my best friend, Mark, told him everything. He's known Julie since college, and I knew he'd tell me what to do. Mark was furious when I told him, calling her a cheating bitch and saying she deserved everything coming to her. He told me I should file for divorce, take custody of the kids, and make sure she didn't get away with this. Honestly, hearing that made me feel a little stronger. I wasn't about to let her ruin my life without a fight. As I sat in my car that night, staring at my phone with all the evidence on the screen, I felt a mix of dread and resolve. I knew once I confronted her, nothing would be the same. She'd try to spin her lies, try to manipulate me again, but I had enough now. I was done playing nice. I was tired of being betrayed, tired of feeling like I was living someone else's nightmare. I was ready to face her, to expose her, and to decide what kind of man I wanted to be, someone who let this destroy him or someone who fought back. I thought about the future, what it would look like if I left her, if I fought for custody, if I made her pay for what she did. I'd be lying if I said I was calm about it. Inside, I was a mess. But I knew one thing, I wasn't going to be her punching bag anymore. I'd take control, even if it hurt like hell. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I finally took a stand. And honestly, I wasn't sure what the ending would be, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this darkness. The morning after I gathered all the evidence, I woke up with a new kind of resolve. I knew what I had to do, even if it terrified me. Confronting Julie wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. It was about laying everything out on the table, making her face what she'd done. I decided I'd give her one chance to come clean, truth or consequences. I wanted to see if she still had any ounce of honesty left in her, or if she'd just keep lying her way out of it. When she woke up, I waited a few minutes, then sat her down at the kitchen table. She looked annoyed, maybe even a little defiant, like she thought she could brush this whole thing off. I handed her my phone with all the messages, the pictures, the proof I'd uncovered. She looked at it, her face draining of color, eyes blinking rapidly as she realized I'd caught her dead to rights. For a moment she just sat there silent. Finally, she scoffed and rolled her eyes. "This is bullshit, Cam," she said, trying to dismiss it. "You're overreacting, you don't know what you're talking about." "No," I said, voice steady but trembling inside. "I saw everything. The pictures, the messages. Don't sit there and lie to me. Tell me the truth now, are you cheating on me?" She looked down, trying to gather herself, then looked back up with that same bitchy smile she always put on when she was trying to manipulate someone. "Look, Cam, I don't know what you want me to say. Yeah, I've been upset, stressed. Maybe I needed some attention. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It's just sex. It's not about our family or anything serious." I clenched my fists. "That's bullshit, Julie. It's never just sex. You're sneaking around behind my back with our daughter's doctor. How could you do that? How could you be so fucking selfish?" She sighed loudly, crossing her arms like she was irritated I was even bothering her. "You've always been insecure. You're controlling. You don't trust me. Maybe I wouldn't have to look elsewhere if you weren't so paranoid all the time. I don't know what you want from me." That's when I lost it. I started yelling, telling her she was a liar, a manipulator, and a cheating bitch. I said I'd had enough of her bullshit, that I'd been patient for too long, but I couldn't do this anymore. I told her she was destroying our family and I wasn't going to be a part of it. I demanded she tell me the truth, no more lies, no more excuses. She looked genuinely angry, like she was about to snap back at me, but then her face twisted into that familiar sneer. "Fine," she spat. "You want the truth? I don't love you anymore. I never did. I was just pretending for the kids' sake and that stupid marriage. Dr. Simmons is better than you. At least he treats me like I matter. You're just some boring, insecure guy who can't give me what I want." That was a punch to the gut. Hearing her say that, I felt like I'd been punched right in the chest. For a second, I couldn't breathe. All that love, all that trust gone. Frustration bubbled over, and I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and tell her how much she'd hurt me. But I just sat there, watching her, disgusted at how she could say something so cold, so ruthless. It was like she'd completely detached from reality. I left the room after that, not because I didn't want to fight anymore, but because I knew I had to think. I needed to step back, breathe, and make some decisions. I couldn't believe I was actually living through this, that my wife had just thrown away everything we built. I was angry, hurt, confused, feeling all these conflicting emotions that threatened to swallow me whole. But one thing was clear: I was done being her punching bag. From now on, I'd do whatever it took to protect myself and my kids, even if it meant burning everything to the ground. I spent the rest of the day trying to process what she said. I kept replaying her words, her cold attitude, and the images of her with Dr. Simmons. I realized that I'd been a fool for so long, ignoring the signs, excusing her bad behavior. But not anymore. The truth was out and I couldn't pretend it was. I was furious, but I was also determined. I needed a plan, one that would make her regret the hell she'd put me through. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. This was just the beginning of a war I wasn't sure I'd win, but I was damn sure I'd fight for what was left of my dignity and my family. That evening, I knew I had to act fast. The accusations, the proof, her bitter words, they all pushed me to the edge. I couldn't just let her continue to lie, manipulate, and destroy everything. I decided I'd need a strategic approach, one that would hit her where it hurt, emotionally and legally. I called a lawyer first thing the next morning. The moment I had gathered my thoughts, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. My mind was racing with plans, divorce, custody, making sure she didn't get away with this. While I waited for my lawyer to call back, I sat alone in my office, staring at all the evidence I'd collected. It was clear this had been going on for months, maybe longer. The pictures, the texts, she'd been lying so convincingly, convincing everyone around her that everything was fine. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. She'd always been bitchy, quick to lash out, but I thought that was just her personality. Now I saw it differently. She was hiding something worse than I ever imagined. When the lawyer finally called, I spent an hour explaining everything: the affair, her lies, the evidence I had. She told me to start preparing for a divorce, to document everything related to the affair and her behavior. She advised me to gather financial records, save all messages and pictures, and consider getting a private investigator if I felt I needed more proof. I agreed, knowing I'd do whatever it took to get justice and protect my kids. As the days went on, I began to implement my plan. I hired a private investigator to confirm the extent of her cheating, especially to see if she continued with Dr. Simmons or anyone else. I also contacted a mediator about custody arrangements, wanting to be prepared for the worst but hoping for the best. I started documenting every interaction, every suspicious move, because I knew that once I filed for divorce, I'd need solid proof to defend my rights. Throughout all this, I kept my emotions in check outwardly, but inside I was a mess. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious, more than I had ever felt before. My mind kept replaying her words, her sneers, the way she lied with such ease. I thought about the kids. What kind of example was she setting for them? How could she do this to us? It was a brutal reality, but I couldn't let her see me break. I had to stay strong, not just for myself, but for my children. Meanwhile, she kept acting like everything was normal. She was bitchy, dismissive, and constantly throwing her tantrums. When I tried to talk to her about the divorce, she'd lash out, call me insecure, accuse me of trying to control her. She'd scream about how I was ruining her life, how she was the victim. Honestly, it was exhausting. But I knew her game. I'd seen her manipulate, lie, and twist everything around to make herself seem innocent. That's why I kept quiet most of the time, gathering my evidence, planning my next move. All I could think about was how this was going to end. I didn't want to keep living a lie. I wanted her to face the consequences of her actions, to understand that cheating on her own children's doctor, lying to me for months, and then calling herself the victim was a step too far. I was tired of her bullshit, tired of feeling like I was just some fool in her game. This was going to be war, and I was ready to fight back hard, even if it meant tearing everything apart. Deep down, I knew I deserved better than this. I deserved someone honest, loyal, and faithful. And if she couldn't give me that, then I had no choice but to walk away. But I also knew that I was going to make her pay for what she did, somehow, some way. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about holding her accountable for betraying everything we built together. And I'd do whatever it took to make sure she couldn't walk away untouched. The worst part, I still loved her, even now. That's what made this so damn complicated. I hated her for what she did, but part of me still remembered the good days, the laughter, the promises. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in that memory. It was time to face the truth. She was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And now, it was up to me to pick up the pieces and decide what kind of person I was going to be moving forward. The day I finally filed for divorce was the hardest of my life. Sitting in the lawyer's office, signing those papers felt like closing a chapter I'd hoped would never end. But deep down, I knew it was the only way to reclaim some sense of control over what was left of my life. Julie's reaction was as manipulative as I expected. She threw a fit, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of trying to ruin her and crying like she was the victim. But I just sat there silent, knowing I'd done what I had to do. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she'd lost me, the trust, the love, everything. In the weeks that followed, the truth about her affair with Dr. Simmons came out publicly. The clinic was embarrassed, the doctor was suspended, and Julie faced consequences at her job. I kept the evidence I'd gathered, photos, messages, the detective's report, to support my custody case. I wanted to make sure she didn't get away with just walking free after betraying her own children, her own marriage. It was a long, painful process, but I refused to let her manipulate her way out of it. During this time, I focused on my kids. They didn't understand everything, but I made sure they knew they were loved, protected, and safe. I kept my distance from Julie, not wanting her to influence them with her bitter lies. I wanted to give them stability amid the chaos. I also started therapy, something I never thought I'd do, but I needed help processing all the anger and betrayal I'd felt. Sometimes I'd sit in that office, tears streaming down my face, wondering how everything had fallen apart so fast. As I look back now, I realize I've grown stronger from all this. It's a painful lesson, but it's one that taught me not to ignore the signs, not to justify bad behavior, and to trust my instincts. Julie's betrayal shattered my world, but it also forced me to reevaluate what I want out of life and love. I learned that sometimes you have to walk away from what's toxic, even if it hurts like hell. Staying wouldn't have made anything better. It only would have prolonged the pain, the lies, and the betrayal. I've come to accept that she's not coming back, and I don't want her to. She's made her choice, and I will honor that by moving forward. I've started rebuilding my life, focusing on my kids, rediscovering myself, and figuring out what happiness truly means for me. I don't regret confronting her or fighting for what's right. It's made me realize my worth and that I deserve someone who values honesty, loyalty, and respect, something she clearly couldn't give. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know I can't dwell on what I couldn't control. What matters is I learned to stand up for myself, to trust my gut, and to never ignore the red flags again. No one deserves to be cheated on, lied to, or emotionally manipulated. It's a painful lesson, but it's also a liberating one. I've finally taken back my life, and I plan to never let anyone take it from me again. That's the truth of it. Sometimes the most brutal lessons are the ones that teach us how strong we really are. And I know now I am strong enough to move on, to heal, and to find happiness again.